Hello everyone, my name is Jacques Akili. I am a freelance 3D artist and an art educator. So today I will be showing you guys a Fibermesh tutorial that I use to concept creatures that have fur, feathers, hair, or really anything that Fibermesh can be used for, which is surprisingly extensive, from plants to just, straight up fur like this. So what we're actually going to be doing today is a 3D concept of this character, who is Pen from one of my personal projects. The end result that we're going for is something akin to this. So these are my Feathered Dinosaur series, and as you can see, they're just this very quick mixture of photo bashing and 3D rendering. Most of it is actually done in ZBrush. Like, this is mostly ZBrush, the color, everything. On the face, this is actually a cliffside that I used to kind of get that crackled beak texture. And then just did a little bit of paint over, some color over, kind of just dug in some of the details, but really it's a concept, and there are a lot of things that are very short-handed just because I want to communicate before anything else. And that, I think, is the first thing that I am going to go over. It's when you're doing concept work as opposed to illustration, you are prioritizing communication. First and foremost, you want to say whatever it is you want to say. You want to pitch whatever it is you want to pitch. And making things look super nice and super detailed is kind of second fiddle to actually communicating your idea. To that end, I believe that illustration as opposed to fine art, and especially concept art as opposed to illustration or fine art, there is such a thing as good and bad, because there is the criteria of, do you communicate what it is that you need to communicate, right? So this, for example, communicates that it is a mouse head. It communicates that it is Pen's head. So I just want you guys to remember that when you're concepting, you don't have to make it perfect and make it slick. You actually really want to be fast. You want to be fast and as accurate as possible, but remember that speed and communication are they just come first. So enough about theory, let's actually get into the fun stuff, the reason why you guys are here. So I have a ZBrush version of Pen's head. This is just here to make things faster, keep the polygon count low, and especially if you're running a computer that might not have as much power, I just want to show you that you can still do this, on a much smaller model than this. This is significantly larger. Oopsie. This is a significantly larger and just messier, dirtier mesh than the other one. Like, you can see, this is just patchy, and this is pretty clean. It also helps with your masking selections, which you need for Dynamesh. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start selecting one area to become a certain part of his hair. Now, the reason why I've selected the top of his hair as opposed to just going for the full body is because, remember, this is concept. You want communication to come first. And if you look at Pen, his overall silhouette, the defining features aside from the actual head is this set of hair, this mohawk, quote unquote, of hair, this little tuft right here that comes in, the hair on his ear, and the hair on his chops. The full body hair, by virtue of being a mouse, is kind of implied. It's sort of already in the viewer's head that this thing probably has fur. And so I'm going to start with something that actually affects the silhouette. So I have this little selection here. One thing that you want to get familiar with if you're going to do a lot of Fibermesh work, especially for characters and creatures, you want to have an understanding of how hair grows and how hair is styled and how it works. So for example, layering, how someone has to cut their hair to make it look a certain way, to make it fall a certain way and behave a certain way. Those are pretty important things. I used to have a mohawk, and so I can tell you that aside from maybe, this is a little close to the ear, over here, this is generally the amount of hair that would go into a mohawk. Yeah, I think this works. You know what? Yeah, I think it's just fine. So we are now going to go into our Fibermesh, and we're going to go to the light bus fibers. And as you can see, there is a fair amount of choices here. But also, you can just by taking a look at some of them, they are not going to be very useful for what we are doing. At least for right now. These all come in handy for a variety of different things, and if we have time in this video, I might actually show you a couple of them. But the one I used for the dinosaurs, for example, is this one, which is supposed to be for grass. But I kind of like it because once you turn off the texture, you get rid of that color and that noise. It just is this very thick, very spiky, very gelled hair set, and as you can see, it is very just punky, mohawky. It's just, I personally really like this one. I've used a couple of others in the past, but really, truly, it's just my favorite. I mean, this is nice, you know, but it's not. It doesn't have the shagginess that I usually get in hair when I paint it, which the other brush just totally has. I mean, you know, this one's pretty nice. You know, it's a little thin. We can probably make it thicker, but this one. Oopsie, did I? Oh, this one it just really hits the mark for me, personally. Obviously, you are welcome to. Oopsie. I keep trying to skip a step ahead here. You are welcome to try out any of these. These are just generally a lot of fun. Let's try this one. Let's try this one for giggles. Yeah, you know, like I said, they're very cool. Some of these are just very wild and very awesome, but for our purposes, we're going to stick to this one. So, I'm going to change the length a little bit, get it to be a bit closer to what we see in our concept here, and this is very close. I think I'm going to make it a little shorter because I usually just make it shorter, and if I need to extend it, I use the lengthen groom brush, which I will show you guys in a little bit. So I kind of like this. I kind of like this length. Let's BPR it just to test it out. Make sure it's what we want. Yeah. Yeah, I like it. You know, it's gonna require a little bit of combing. You know what? Maybe. Oh, okay, no. So let's see. Coverage. What coverage does is coverage just makes everything a little thicker. And so you can see how if I max out the coverage, which I did for the dinosaurs, this quickly gives you a kind of feathery effect. Alright? We don't really want that for pen, and so I'm going to drop the coverage a little bit. The next one that I use a lot is gravity. Pretty self-explanatory there, you know. Let's see. Can we find anything really just absolutely hilarious and awesome we can do with this? I think this is probably best. And I don't really. Maybe we can clump it up a little bit. No. I don't think it's gonna do much for us. Yeah, I don't really like that. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and accept this. Gonna turn off solo mode, and we are going to start editing. So I'm gonna turn on the higher poly version, just because it shows off a bit more of the sculpting. But like I said, this totally works with the low poly as well. So I'm going to use the Groom Strong brush, which if you open up your brush tab, hit G, it will be right here. So I'm going to use this to just kind of, this usually takes a little fiddling with. Every single time you use Fibermesh, you are probably going to go through a very, very intense love-hate moment, because Fibermesh can be a little finicky. It takes a lot of getting used to. So right now, I'm just going to get rid of the evenness that is from the original Fibermesh. I'm just kind of going around, making it just a little bit more wild, a little bit more natural. I'm going to keep them off the ears for now, just because I do have plans for the ears. Yeah. No, this works. This works. I think. Yeah, you know what? I kind of like them going back a little bit more. I think I maybe should have thinned this out a little bit. I don't like what just happened there. Let me check BPR. One of the great things about Fibermesh is that at any time you can just BPR it and just make sure it's what you want. Okay, this is looking good. There's a little bit of tangling here, which I actually would prefer at the top. So I think I'm going to get some Groom Twist happening. Where are you, Groom Twist? Groom Twist? Groom Twister. There we go. And I'm just gonna, whee. And if you hold on Alt, it does it the other direction. It seems really obvious, but when I was first using brushes with this sort of feature, like the spiral brushes, like the spiral brush, sorry, I think there's only one, it kind of caught me by surprise and sort of blew my mind and revolutionized my world. So I just wanted to make sure I shared that with you guys. Let's see. Okay, now we are getting somewhere. Then I'm going to add just a little bit of twist here. A little bit of twist here. I'm going to save real quick. Alright. So I'm going to try to use Groom Lengthen to add a little bit more moments of interest here. Yeah. I think this one. Oops. Yes, I think this. Probably this here. This will do. So one thing about this method is that because we are going to be essentially photo bashing using the Fibermesh itself later on, you do not need to necessarily get too accurate with this, but you do want to have the right thickness. You want to have the right noise. I will explain all of this a little bit. For now, we just need to have a little bit of fun trying to get this to do what we want. which is always the fun part of working with computers. It is, at least in my personal belief, it is more of a relationship. The software has certain things that it needs. There are certain things that you want, and as long as you provide the software with what it needs to get you what you want, you get what you want. That is kind of our relationship with machines. I guess it's not the same thing as human relationships, but I believe it's a relationship still. I think that, as with any relationship, there is communication. You need communication. There is compromise. Sometimes ZBrush quite simply cannot do certain things, and you are going to have to settle for next best. Or let's BPR this again. Check it, check it, check it, check it. Alright, looks good. Let us now grab a different part. Let's do, let's do the chops. I think I can get Fibermesh, light box. That is so long. Let's just shorten that down. Let's just shorten that down a lot. Alright, I'm going to just manually extend these. Alright, so ZBrush just kind of randomly crashed back there. I had a feeling it was going to crash because there was a graphical glitch happening with the Mutton Chop Fibermesh. So there are a number of things that will make ZBrush crash. One of the reasons why, when I use Fibermesh, I very often, well, one, save a lot. Actually, if you do anything, just save a lot. But one of the reasons why I will very often use a zero mesh model for all my masking and all my Fibermesh extractions is just because I don't want ZBrush to stress itself out. And if you go back to that conversation, well, I guess not a conversation, that thing I said about how we have relationships with machines, this is an aspect of that relationship, right? So you don't want the other person in your relationship to be super taxed and just overworked, right? So you don't want to give ZBrush a mesh that is just nightmare, like it's dirty, it's gross and unorganized, and it's super heavy, and it just has to like render God knows what to get you your result. You don't want to put ZBrush in that position because it makes it harder for ZBrush to provide you with what you are looking for when you do that. And so, to that effect, it really is just to your benefit to keep things as small as possible whenever you can. And while I'm a total advocate and actually seriously recommend that if you are looking for speed, you probably want to be able to go dirty with your mesh. You want to be able to just very quickly underhand things, suggest things, just slap things together and abuse the item mesh to get to your intended result very quickly. But that being said, you need to be ready for certain consequences, right? Things might not go as smoothly if you do that. So just be aware that ZBrush, like anything else, anyone else that you would work with, it just has needs. It has things that it is going to want. It has things that it kind of expects, and I'm forgetting how the, okay. It has things that it is going to want and expect from you. And you kind of need to be able to give ZBrush that information. Otherwise, ZBrush just is useless and it cannot help you. This is where things like knowing your tool, this is where things like experience, just literal trial and error, I remember in my first few kind of months, I think, of using ZBrush, my days would consist of completely messing something up and just bashing my head against the wall trying to fix it and trying to understand why and how it happened. Over time, what happens is that you collect a number of happy accidents that by the time you've really analyzed the why and the how of it, they're no longer really accidents. You kind of gain control over them, and I think I'm going to use a much thinner fiber. Um, it's no longer an accident if you can make it happen anytime you want, right? And this was a terrible idea. This was a terrible idea. This was a terrible idea. I'm not even sure what fiber I ended up using. I might actually skip myself doing the rest of the fibers just because this is just taking time.